شكرا سيدي الرئيس.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to congratulate your friendly country on your membership of the Council and on assuming the presidency of the Council this month. My delegation has read with much attention the concept note for this session. We stress that the contents of the concept note highlight the commitments of all governments of the world under the Charter, without distinction, double standards, or selectivity. My delegation at the beginning regrets that the government of the United States of America refused to give entry visa to Mr. Zarif, the foreign minister of the Islamic Republic of Iran, to take part in this session. The host country is preventing the Council from listening to the point of view of an important party in the maintenance of international peace and security in our region. This behavior by the host country undermines its commitments under the host country agreement and the provisions of the Charter that stresses equal rights and obligations of member states. Mr. President, no one can deny that we are living in a world that suffers from the spread of polarization because some governments think that their political, military, and economic might gives them the right to decide the fate of others. But what is more dangerous is that the credibility and the status of the UN suffers from uncertainty that threatens and means that this organization would meet the same fate of the League of Nations that collapsed because it succumbed to pressures by mighty and major powers to give legitimacy to aggression where it was supposed to defend security and stability and peace in the world. Hence, we stress the importance of the severe tests facing the Charter and multilateralism because of a number of international variables. And we think that this meeting should reach recommendations on transparency in self-criticism and understanding mistakes so that we can deal seriously with specific threats, mainly the rise of international terrorism and the spread of practices outside the scope of international legitimacy and the spread of manufacturing of weapons and proliferation and violation of international conventions on the proliferation of weapons and imposing economic blockade on a number of states, and the misuse of the Charter, particularly Article 51, to justify aggression against countries, including my country. The government of Syria, with its partners, has had victories over terrorism. This would have positive effects to see withdrawal of terrorism. However, we paid a hefty price because there are irresponsible practices of certain governments. Some of them hold permanent seats in this council. These governments have done everything to overthrow my legitimate government using terrorism, and they have used UN mechanisms to achieve this goal, and they even falsified realities, as they did in Iraq, Libya, and Venezuela. I ask you all to think sincerely and honestly and find an answer to questions that we put forward to the conscience of all free governments and free peoples of the world, and you will find the answers that will uncover the true reasons for the non-implementation of the provisions of the Charter towards the maintenance of international peace and security. The questions are: why does Palestinians and Syrians continue to suffer under Israeli occupation? Why is the Council silent as permanent members of the Council continue to legitimize settlements and acknowledge a make-believe right of the Israeli occupation over Jerusalem and the Syrian Golan? Why does the Council fail to implement its resolutions on terrorism? Why does it not hold accountable governments that continue to fund a Nusra Front in Syria? And how is the Council silent vis-à-vis the U.S. assassination crime against leaders that are Iraqi and Iranian leaders that were fighting ISIL and Nusra Front in Syria and Iraq. Why is the Council remaining hostage to the will of some governments that are obstructing the work of our army against a Nusra Front, which is designated by the Council as a terrorist entity, as it occupies Idlib and its surrounding areas to make it a center and a hub for extremism? And why does the Council ignore, why does a number of governments ignore the need to take back the FTFs who have wreaked havoc in our country? We have more than 300,000 FTFs and their families in Syria, Mr. President. And how does the Council remain silent vis-à-vis the aggression and the military occupation of Turkey, the US, Britain, and France against the sovereignty and the unity and territorial integrity of my country? And how is the Council silent in the face of the Turkish aggression as it transfers FTFs from Idlib to Libya and as it seeks to kindle the fire in Libya? And some members of the Secretariat are even praising the Turkish regime as it continues the so-called humanitarian work in the north of Syria, and the fact is that it has displaced hundreds of thousands. And we speak of the upholding of the Charter. We have only one solution for this. The Charter should be for everyone, should be above everyone, without immunity to any political power or might. I thank you.
I thank the representatives of Syrian Arab Republic.